So, welcome to episode 17 of Ear to the Streets podcast with myself, Tdot. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, first overseas guest that I've had on the podcast. Um, I don't know what to call you, rapper, reggae artist, I don't know, but Jonathan Emile, welcome. How you doing?
Tdot, thank you for having me. It's we've been going back and forth chopping it up on Twitter for a while now, and it's good that we finally get to speak face to face. I wish it could be in person, but I'm good. And yeah, I'm just a creator, musician, creator. I like to call myself an entrepreneur too, but it's just going through life, figuring it out, and trying to be a good person and bring good things, good creations into the world and do good. So that's me.
Yeah, 100%. I hear that. I hear that. And I wanted to start this episode, if we can, by taking it all the way back early Jonathan, introducing yourself into music and what those influences were and how you got into music. What was that journey like for you to start the career in music?
Oh wow. Yeah, it's a good question. I think a lot of it has to do with my parents and the way that I was brought up to see music as a part of not only my cultural heritage, but a part of the community, a part of bringing people together from all around the world, all different stripes and everything. So I was just raised with really good music in the house. My parents had a range for everything from Bob Marley to Pavarotti to John Lennon to Nina Simone, and they just really, I have to credit them with really just exposing me to some incredible music. And then I had my older sister, and there's like a there's like an 8-year gap between us. So she was like educating me on what's new and what was hot at the time. She gave me Busta Rhymes as my first um like, she gave me like an old cassette. By that tape cassettes were already phased out, but like I like she gave me all her old cassettes to listen to, and of course I played them out, until the cassette player died and the cassette died. So that was like the early time, and just singing, singing in choir, singing in church. That was a big part of my upbringing too in Montreal. And I always loved music, and I loved poetry when I was getting into my teens and stuff like that. And it's in secondary school or high school, we just you do just drop a freestyle or do whatever. And then I started to fall in love with it, but it really didn't take hold until I got sick. I was diagnosed with a life threatening cancer, very low survival chance rate, and by that time I was like very good at writing. I always excelled in school in writing, and during that time I really just let myself fall in love with it and use it as a way to express myself and to organize my thoughts and to face the challenge of going through cancer. And so multiple surgeries, over a year and a half of chemotherapy and radiation and stuff. And through that whole time, it was really music that helped me lift myself up, helped me communicate, but helped me survive. I think there's all types of therapies and health stuff that you can do, but I think on the mental side and the spiritual side, it was really music was the real therapy. So I made myself a promise that if I got through it after that, I would just continue to do music and to share this love that I found. But not only that is communicate my thoughts and ideas and tell people, push out positivity. So whether I do hip hop or reggae music or R&B or soul, like there's like a positivity factor to it, to uplift people and to help people get through struggle, because we all have to face struggles in our lives, and sometimes it's hard to find that encouragement or motivation. So that was my that was my intro to being a musician, to music. It was very much sociological and spiritual and poetic, and I've just continued that, and I never look back, and I love it. I love it still to this day.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't know that about you. So, around having cancer and surviving it is an achievement in itself. I think you know like you said, the survival rate in any cancers is very low, you know, and to be one of the few, um, you know, I don't know statistics. I'm not a stats guy, but I just know that, you know, cancer is a big thing in especially like you know, sort of Jamaican heritage and a black heritage. You know, it's a big thing. So, um, yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know that. So, congratulations on obviously surviving that, and you know,
And for that type of cancer that I have, the survival rate was quite low. I mean, like it was a pediatric cancer, and I got it when I was around 18. And the survival rate was 10%. At that time. So there was it wasn't given. It wasn't guaranteed that I would make it through. And that sort of informed. It still informs how I interact and act with people. At the time, it sort of well, it definitely killed my sort of idea of immortality. I know when I was much younger, like, I wasn't thinking about death or like long-term planning or whatever. I was just like, no, you just feel like you're immortal, like, and nothing can hurt you, nothing can phase you. You're very like you taking risks and stuff, and it just sort of like gave me a different perspective very early in life. So yeah, and I'm just grateful to be here. And like whenever I get riled up or frustrated or whatever, I just have to remember, okay, relax.
you went through that.
Y-
Mm.
Yeah, put things in perspective. So it gives me that perspective with all the challenge that I have to face, day to day, year to year, whatever.
So would you say, obviously taking yourself back when you was 18, that was when the writing process for you, that's where you picked it up and you developed that love for the music, and then obviously you mentioned some of the influences, and I'm assuming I can add sort of like a Peter Tosh or a
Yeah,
Hammond or Freddie
that's right.
McGregor to that kind of, yeah, so them kind of
That's the vibe. I mean, that was like, you had like the religious scripture, like that you go to church for, but then that was like that was like some next level cultural and spiritual scripture. Like those gentlemen, those people, were really had an influence on on me in a profound way. And to be able to make music and sort of carry the legacy that they set forth is like, I take that as a serious responsibility. But at the same time, it's like such a it's such a pleasure to just be live in that space and to continue in that space and do the best that I can.
yeah, 100%. And I believe, is it your mother that's from Jamaica? Your father was or is from America? Is that correct?
Yeah, so my mom is from Jamaica, from Sav and Westmoreland. That's not far from Negril. And my dad is mixed Black American. His family's from Mississippi originally, and his mom was French Canadian, so of French descent. So he was like a biracial time and a biracial child in a crazy time. And yeah, so those are the two sides of me. So I ended up growing up in Montreal, Canada, but traveling back to Jamaica frequently. And I mean, Toronto and Montreal are pretty close together in North American standards. So I grew up in between all those places. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it taking me back a bit now as well, because my mum was from Jamaica as well. So,
All
you know, I
right.
used to, as a kid, I used to, she was from Maypen, Clarendon, that kind of.
That's right. All right. Yeah. I have a cousin, a good friend whose family's from Maypen. Maypen. Also, you've been many times, or you've been some
Yeah, yeah,
from.
yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I haven't been for a while, obviously, especially now with
Yeah.
all the madness that we're going through. But yeah, it takes me back to my childhood, and my nan and granddad used to live there as well. So we used to always stay with them, and just
Wicked.
obviously living in England and the cultures, the difference of the culture in England and the culture in Jamaica are completely different. And I assume that might be the same for yourself when you're traveling from Toronto and Jamaica. The two just don't really go hand in
Yeah,
hand.
it's very different. There's definitely a weather shock. I would say it's even more extreme than going from London to Jamaica, but there's also definitely a culture shock. But every place has a different rhythm and a different vibration, and there's beauty in all places. But I really cherish being able to go back to Jamaica. And my grandma still lives there. Um, and I have family there as well. So yeah, it's good. It just gives you a duality, two sides of yourself. And you hear that on some of my earlier work, just trying to figure out, where I fit into everything. Where my first project was called The Lover Fighter, and I sort of gave like two sides to the coin, two sides to the person or to the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to touch on the Love of Fire EP because I think that's the first. Even though we connected very later on, I remember. I'm pretty sure that was early 2009, probably around then. I think
Yeah, that's
you had
another
that then, yeah.
lifetime ago. Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember, and this is before I knew of your heritage, so I didn't know your mother was from Jamaica or was from Jamaica. So I think there's a song on there called "Babylon Is Fallen," I think, and that is
Wow.
very.
So tell me, you've been following me since that album, or did you? Has it been that long that you knew about me, or because
Yeah,
that was
because
basically
when
like,
yeah,
go
that's
on, go on.
early. That's early you, and I think then because I was heavily into American sort of Canadian artists
Yeah.
and growing up as well. I wasn't the music in the UK hasn't been as good as it is, I would say now. So a lot of people
Mhm.
growing up from the UK were always looking for new artists to listen to from overseas.
Yeah.
So I remember that EP only because it had the tune. There was a song on there called "Babylon Is Fallen." There was
Wow.
another song on there called "That Fire." Is it called "That Fire"?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was that. So this is where, which now makes sense because you explained it to me. But this makes sense because "That Fire" was very more the hip hop side, and "Babylon Is Fallen" is more your reggae sort of
Yeah.
roots.
Roots. Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense to me now because you almost like you said you were kind of trying to find yourself in terms of that EP and the direction you were going to go in as well. Um, so yeah, that makes sense to me now when you say that. But I follow a lot of people. People are surprised when they find out how long I've been following them.
Yeah. That's wild. It's not every day because, even the song Babylon is Falling, right? So,
Hmm.
um, I actually, on my latest album, I brought that song back and I revisited it, remixed it, rearranged it, and I even put out a remix with Maxi Priest, and he's on the newest version. And that if there's any song that really uh, sort of encapsulates my entire journey, it's Babylon is Falling. I, d- I don't have that many, like, well, maybe that's not true, but that particular song has a longevity, that and it's always well received, like when I perform it and when people hear it. um and that really is the duality in one song. You have the roots reggae, and then there's like a hip hop verse in the middle of it, and it's that's crazy that you've been following me for this long. So you got the inside track. You might be like, one of the thought leaders on Jonathan Emile's career.
Yeah, man. No, the thing with me is I listen to too much music. I think that's my problem. So a lot of it gets hazy as well. Sometimes I forget dates of when I listen to things and when they're from. But I wanted to talk briefly and very briefly around the collaboration for the song that you did with Kendrick Lamar, "Heaven Help Them," and I want to talk about it because not for those reasons, for what I suppose you've had to discuss in the past, but because of the context and the reason behind the song. Because I feel like it's still, I think that would have been 2011, 12. So you're talking nearly 10 years ago, and it's still relevant today in terms of what is happening in obviously overseas and even in England as well. It's the same thing. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on how, before we move on around the issue around which you resolved the issue around the song. But what's your thoughts on the fact that 10 years later we're still having to talk about and discuss things like
Yeah.
the song that you made?
Well, I mean, I'll say two things, because one thing is it's about perspective, right? Like we I brought that up a little bit before, but you have to put things in perspective. And two, I think the second thing is really about resilience. Okay, so the song is, of course, unfortunately, still very much relevant. And in fact, when I put it out, it wasn't really on trend to talk about um, black issues and address things like police brutality in such a direct and frank way. And I'm sure that had implications on the way that the song was rolled out, received, and the way that people, whatever unfolded. I don't know. I'm gleaning. I'm just hypothesizing, but I'm sure that had an impact. So the first thing is about perspective, and it's like, look at our parents and grandparents. I mean, I'm sure your parents are part of that Windrush generation, or your grandparents at least. My grandmother, was part of that great migration towards Canada and America that a lot of Jamaicans went through at the same time. That a lot of our family. I mean, I have family in Brixton and England, all over. Um, so look at the challenges that they faced. Um, all things considered, things are getting better. It seems very difficult at times to admit that, but I'd rather live now than then. We have a different set of challenges
Mm,
and a different reality, but um how do we face them? At least we have the opportunity to make songs about it that can be heard by the whole world. We have a new set of allies and a new set of people who, if they're not supporting us, in the
mm,
streets, or in the courtrooms, or in the parliaments, at least they are supporting us morally, right? So all
mm.
that work that our parents and grandparents did in America and Jamaica and UK and Canada, that has had an impact all over the world, not just those
Yeah,
places,
yeah,
but this is my context.
yeah.
So that's one thing about perspective, and the other thing is about resilience, right? um
Mm,
it's it's telling because we expect things to happen so fast. And for us, for me, as young people, 10 years is a long time. That's like 10 iPhones ago, It's like it's a long time. We live in a world and a culture where, you put out a song and like, oh, it's 8 months ago. Oh, that song's old now. You know what I mean? Um, whereas that's a new thing. It hasn't been like that. This is completely like a new reality. So in terms of resilience, it's like, look, I never expected, police brutality to be resolved in 10 years after 400 years of slavery, and I don't know how many years of like of racial apartheid and injustice. I mean, these are things that are connected. Like we have work to do still, work we have work. And when I was talking to Maxi about this when we were writing Babylon's Falling, it's like a torch, because it's like generation after generation. Like, we cannot assume that this is going to be done in our lifetime, and it's unfortunate that we don't have the equality and the parity with people who just have a different skin tone and a different culture than us. But we have to know that there's still work to do. When everything is turnkey and available online and you can get it in 10 seconds, the pace of technology and the pace of our desires don't move at the same pace that the society moves. And that's why we can't give up on the black church, or give up on the activist movements, or give up on the organizing, because there's still work to be done if we're going to maintain our gains, maintain our freedoms that we've earned, that we've fought for, and there's still work to do to get to a place where, like, look, our kids, all the youths that are coming up right now, they will be in a better situation than we were, and we're in a better situation than our parents and our grandparents and great grandparents who were slaves. You know what I mean? So that's it. That's you know perspective and resilience. We just have to keep on, and that's what a lot of my music is about. That's what Heaven Help Them is about. That's what Babylon is Fallen is about. And the stories have to be told, have to be reiterated, have to be remixed,
mm.
so people can understand that.
Keep pushing it and keep moving the narrative as well.
That's it. Yeah,
Um,
man.
yeah, and I feel like it's such a meaningful song, and like you say, in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that song's still gonna have relevance. I believe that as well. I don't
I
think,
mean,
like you say. So they're not going to be resolved overnight, is it?
No, it can't be, and
Mm,
trends come and go, but the drum that we beat towards justice, tago go on, and we've been beating this drum since since the first ships left from West Africa to go to the Americas. It's the same drum that the that the indigenous people in Canada and the US have been beating, just like the drum of, self-determination and justice, and for me that's a big part of the music that I make. It's not the entire part of the music. I mean, I make music about love, I make music about turning up, I make music, but I like to explore the full range of emotions, and not just in reggae. People think since I dropped the reggae album that it's like, oh yeah, he's a reggae artist now. But I have two full hip hop albums sitting. I'm just shopping them around. To some different labels and distributors and seeing, okay, which move am I gonna make. But that's still a huge
mm.
part of me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that as well. That's something that I think the versatility that you've got there to be able to maneuver in different rooms. You can go in a hip hop room, you can go in a reggae room. No artist should box himself in regardless, and I feel like that happens quite a lot. And like I say about the record, Heaven Help Them, it's such a powerful song. It's a shame that people always discuss the other side of it in terms of Kendrick and his team trying to get the song taken down for whatever reason, but you had to legally challenge that, and you won that challenge, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. I just went and I told a story, and I gave them an opportunity to say their story, and the outcome is the outcome. And the reason is, well, not the reason, but the outcome of that process was that I was able to say, okay, I'm an integral person. I did things the way that they should be done, and now let's move on. You know, let's grow from it, because it's very clear who is my. People get adversary and enemy mixed up. You know what? You know, man, them, all them people them who I had to deal with, they're not my enemies. They're just like my adversaries. We just had a disagreement and we move on from it. And the focus needs to be on what we need to do, as the I and I, what we need to do to get to the next step, to get that freedom and get that unity. And that's what the focus needs to be on.
Mm. Yeah, 100%, 100%. Um, I think when I go back to 2018, and I think this is when we connected socially on sort of Twitter, and we started talking about, you were talking about the music you was bringing out, and I remember listening to Phantom Pain at
Oh,
that time,
cha cha.
and yeah, so that to me, that so we can go back to the lover
Yeah.
and that EP, but the Phantom Pain was. Well, I remember. I think I messaged you actually. I'm sure this is when I messaged you and said, "Listen, this body of work here, yeah, this is gonna go down as classic, timeless, because you can put it on
I hope
today.
so. Yeah.
It's only what 4 years old, 3 years old, four
Yeah.
years old,
Yeah.
and it still listens. It sounds like a record you recorded 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It's that timeless. It's gonna hold its weight in gold. So
Mhm.
I think, yeah, just talk me through the project, how it came together, the collaborations on there. How did that all come
Mhm.
about?
Yeah. So Phantom Pain was you know, uh it gets a little darker, on Lover Fighter was very mixed emotions, and then on Phantom Pain I just the rhythms, the instrumentals, the beats are a little bit darker, everything's more muted. And instead of going towards international collaborations, I sort of tried to find, um not find, but emphasize people, from where I'm from, from the hoods, the neighborhoods, and the city where I grew up. And I like to do back and forth, like a little bit of mix of that, because it brings, it generates different inspiration, you know So that project, the whole idea of it was, was like trauma, and losing a part of yourself, losing a part of your innocence, and then how do you grapple with that as things evolve. And I've always been obsessed with, you know, making music that will last, that stands up over time, but also um, adapting to, or seeing the curve and seeing where the trends and where the music is going, um, and trying to be on the curve, but keep that content strong, you know. Um, so the whole process was, I just spent time finding the instrumentals, or the working with producers, um who could set a mood, set a tone for exactly like where I was in my life at that time. You know what I mean? A time where I'm figuring it out, and figuring out, loss, figuring out defeat, figuring out um or just expressing where I stood politically and socially, and putting it all into a way where it's like, this could last, so Phantom Pain, yeah, I just went back to the roots. I went back to the neighborhoods and the producers and the engineers and the people that I had, come up with. And I'm like, okay, I did this international thing, let's get back to it. And then as I continue, I just carry the squad, carry the people, the collaborators, the people who I appreciate. I still carry them on with me, like, a man who I recorded stuff for the Lover Fighter on, like a lot of the songs, he's still in the fold, and he's working on this next project, which is called Wilderness, um that I just finished mixing and mastering, and that's sort of like a direct continuation of Phantom Pain. So you'll get
Mm.
that next look real soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I think on Front and Pain, we've got songs like Where We Go, Viva Fidel, Heart of an Enemy. Those kind of songs stand out for me in that project because I feel like they're timeless songs, man. You can put them on today and they sound like they're just recorded, literally. And if we're getting a part two of that, I'm looking forward to it. So, have you got a release date for that, or
No, no, I don't have a release date, but since you're ear to the streets, I think that I might give you a little preview of that, so you could listen to it and then be like, wow,
resonate
and wait, yeah,
it?
but yeah, mixed and mastered, and just like it's in the fridge for now, and just we're gonna put it out soon. I do have to say, the first time that you reached out to me, I was really confused because um Tdot is a name for Toronto, right? Canada.
Yeah,
Like the abbreviation is, people them
listen, I've
call it
had this
Tdot, and
before.
I was just like, yo, like I was like, oh, just some man from Toronto, and then we started talking. I'm like, where you from?
I've had it before. I've had people message me and say like, "Are you from Toronto?" I was like, "No, no, no." And I think as well, there's another artist called Tdot because
That's
people
right.
confuse me with another artist. I think he
Yeah,
works
he's
with
from the
Meek
South though.
Meek Mill.
He's from I think he's from like Georgia or Virginia. I don't know. Like he's from the U.S. or something like that. But like, yeah. And I was just like, I was like, okay, is he from Toronto? Oh no, is it the artist? No, 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 no. But then, anyways, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that a lot, man. I get not as much as I used to, but I still get people like, yeah, thinking I'm someone else or I'm from Toronto, and I'm like, no, no, just from a guy from England using the name T Dot, and I didn't even realize that's what it meant as well. I didn't know that it had any reference to Toronto until I googled it and then found out. So, yeah, crazy. But I wanted to talk about, you just mentioned then about putting your album in the fridge and letting it cool off a little bit. Um, so talk me through Spaces in Between, which I feel like is the moment you kind of sort of stepped over more so. Um, we've had like tasters on your albums of the
Mm,
reggae direction that you wanted to go in at some point, and I feel like Spaces in Between is very much that kind of project and that body of work that, as a
yeah.
listener, for me, I've always wanted to hear from you. So just talk us through that process.
Um. Wow. What could I say about that? I mean, look, it was a long process because I wrote like the real first iteration of that album at the same time when I was writing Phantom Pain. but I put it,
Right.
I put it in cold storage for a little bit, because I didn't, to do roots reggae, you can't, you have to do it right. You know what I mean? Um, you know, a lot of music are are commercial based, especially in hip hop. It's all commercial based, and it's trend, and it's, oh, the bars, like what bars that, um but roots is like, is a deeply cultural, deeply spiritual, deeply humanitarian type of music, you know what I mean? And just getting the right rhythms, uh the right melodies, is like so important. And doing that for the first time as, a Jamaican born a foreign, not growing up in Jamaica, not having it as, it's a part of me. It's not my entirely. So to do it honor, to do justice, and to be able to like sort of walk in the shadow of the people we, Peter Tosh and Freddie McGregor and Jimmy Cliff and all these guys, um, I had to be very, very. I'm 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 really much more concerned about the legacy, because unlike a lot of other musics, reggae hasn't been exploited or commodified the way that all of, a lot of soul music and hip hop and R&B has just been watered down and dashed away, just like product cycle, okay, take and dispose, reggae has always kept its soul in terms of what it was intended to mean, and in the beginning, and where it is now, um and it hasn't been commercially exploited, and it's harder to access because it's a harder genre of music to do. Not everybody can sing reggae music, it's not only like, the patois or whatever. It's the way that the rhythm falls, and the way that, the way that the drops happen, and the inflections, and this, and the whole idea of spaces in between. It's like, it's that literal space in between the beats. I mean, reggae is, all the emphasis is on the, on chuck 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 chuck. It's all, it's the opposite of where, it's supposed to be in Western music or whatever, So I just had to, I just really took my time with it, and I work with a producer in Montreal who I respect very much, who really comes from the punky roots rock reggae tradition, um, which which is what the reggae scene in England was like, in the 60s and 70s, that hybrid between like the anti-fascist punk rockers and the spiritual eye from Jamaica, and how they were able to merge punk and rock and reggae to really bring reggae to an international forum. I mean, Bob Marley is the one who did it as the face, but all the collaborators behind him, this was the worlds. These are the worlds that 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 brought reggae music. These were the people who brought reggae music to the world. So I wanted to do something in tr- that tradition of exported reggae, or, fusion reggae, the same tradition that Maxi Priest follows. Um, I wanted to do that properly, and it took a while, and I'm very proud of that album. I mean, it's just just over a year old, and people are hearing it for the first time and like, wow, okay, how did I miss this? What's happening? And I recorded the album again completely live to tape. We did it like old school, like ABC Studios. We went into the studios with a 10-piece band, run the tune, record it. Oh no, okay, let's do the whole tune over again. And then we did it again, and just did it the way that it was intended to be done,
Mm.
from the very
Yeah,
beginning in the
yeah.
50s and
The
60s,
right way.
That's it,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
that's where it was with Spaces in Between.
And how did the collaboration with Maxi Priest, how did that come about?
I mean, that was a really great connection that I got through one of my brethren in New York, Brian, who he said, this would be the right fit, and I'm gonna try to reach out to Maxi Priest. I'm gonna play him your album Spaces in Between, and I said, Brian, send an album, any song that Maxi Priest wants to touch,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
are gonna do it, because and and he chose Babylon is Falling, and we linked up in New York, and we wrote it and recorded it together. And then since then we've been in touch. We also did a song with Itana, right?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and that was a great song too, and that was really like old time ska lovers rock type of vibe. And she's amazing as well too. So yeah, it was quite a project, quite a project.
Yeah. And you shot Savannah, the video for Savannah. Where was the location for that?
Oh, that was in Savannah Lamar in Westmoreland, Jamaica. Yeah. So Sav is they call it Sav, but Sav is basically that's where Peter Tosh is from. Peter Tosh is from Petersfield, which is just like outside of Sav Lamar. Um and that's where my mother is from. She's from there. So I went, to as ancestral home as we can identify, and I went there and I recorded it, and it was a great team. My wife was there. She was working on the project as well. She did, the staging, hair, makeup, costume design, and logistics. And then I had a team. We brought down two videographers from Montreal, and we got two videographers from Jamaica. And our whole marketing team was there, and in a week we shot like four music videos, and then we put them out over time in step with Tough Gang International, which is the distributor of the project.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I think if I've got this correct as well, you recorded the album before the approach was made to Tough Gong, I think, right?
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, what was that connection like, and obviously, how did that link up come about?
There's no connection, no link up, no crazy story. We literally sent a cold email. We're just like, oh, you know, would you like to distribute this album, or would like to work together, or whatever? And then the first email we got back was like, "Oh no, sorry, we don't take unsolicited, requests." And I was like, "All right," I told my manager, I was like, "I see, it doesn't work like that." And then, and then they sent an email back being like, "Hold on, let's listen to this, and we'll get back to you shortly." And I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." And then literally 3 days later, like, "All right, here's a version of the first draft of the agreement. We'd like to work with you. Let's open up a dialogue and a conversation." I mean, that's the story end to end, you know. And yeah, it's been critically received very well. Yeah, it's been really critically received well, and I was supposed to be on tour last year, with some amazing people, some legends in the reggae game. I won't name drop because you can't name drop things that never really happened. But yeah, definitely I was supposed to be touring with Max and maybe do a little something with Etana, but and there's others, other things in California and south of the US and stuff, but it didn't it couldn't materialize. So we just had to make our next move on and figure it out.
So we were talking about the live streams. I noticed you've done a few live streams, obviously because of the COVID situation that we're in at the moment. Um, yeah, so how are you gonna? Is that more? Is that gonna happen, or are you gonna be doing
Yeah,
any
I
more of
mean
them?
that's a great question. So, the live streams, I mean, we had to pivot and figure out a new formula. So there's going to be a more live streams, but part of that is I'm going to be breaking some new music online to just um, a few people at a time. So, like for the live album, Spaces in Between Live, which we're going to call Live in Between or Live in Between. I'm going to do a closed Zoom or a closed Google Meet with 100 people who get to listen to it just one time, back to back. So you're invited. You have to bring 10 of your brethren and your sister. You have to bring 10 of them, and yeah, we'll listen to it. So there's that. There's going to be like group listening sessions for one. Um, Man, I would love to tour England again. I did it two times. I did a tour in England, but I'd love to do it. And then we're gonna do just more live performances, um, and ramp up the amount of content that I'm doing. I shot a music video last week. We're shooting more. We have a lot of video in the bank, which is I'm grateful for. So more editing, more content, and generally, more live streaming. I think that's what we have right now. That's what the cards were dealt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that seems to be the way that time is going. Hopefully, we can get back to live music, proper live music, not
Yeah.
through the internet. But listen, Jonathan, it's been amazing talking to you.
Thank
Like I
you.
said, you're the first overseas artist I've had, and like I said, I followed your journey from start to now, and I know it's only going to get better. This is only the start, so I'm looking forward to the new album, the new project. I know you're sitting on a lot of music, so
Yeah.
don't sit on it too long because we want to hear that.
Yeah,
But no,
soon come. Soon come.
I appreciate you coming on, and obviously go and listen to Jonathan's music, all the music that's out there now. Spaces in Between is the latest project. We'll put links in the description, and you can follow us on ETTS Podcast. And thank you again, Jonathan, for coming on.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
having me, and all the best to you and everybody. Keep your ear to the streets. You done know. All right.
Love,
Walk
brother.
good.
Love,
Walk
love.
good.